and I am the children's pastor at a church that's just down the road, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And, but I've been at that church for 9 years, 7 years the children's pastor. And during that time, like, it's been really cool. We've been through a lot of transition, but God is just, his favor and his grace and has helped us get through a lot. But I've been in kids ministry doing that since I was 15. So that's a long time ago. You don't know my age, but just rest assured that's a long time ago for me. When I was 15, I came to know Jesus. I was a baby Christian. I went on a missions trip with my youth group. When I was there, we did street ministry, like evangelism, go out on the street and talk to people about Jesus. And I remember being drawn to like the strollers with the kids in them, or like the mom's holding the hand of a little kid. I was always like, hi, what's your name? You know, how old are you? Did you know that Jesus loves you and that God made you? You know, and as a new Christian, I was like, what is that about? Like feeling drawn to kids. And so I prayed over that. It was a week-long trip, and during that trip I prayed, and I felt the Lord like solidify in my heart, this is what I want you to do. And I was like, what do you mean? Is kids ministry even a thing? Like, as a new Christian, I didn't know what that was. So I went back to my church and found out we had a kids ministry, and I didn't even know about it. And so I started serving and haven't stopped. And even I went to Bible college for it and got my degree in children's ministry, and I haven't stopped serving since then. So it's awesome. That's my story. But your stories are, I'm sure, different. And maybe you didn't receive like a call, maybe you didn't go to Bible college for it, maybe you inherited a kids ministry. They're like, hey, we need a director, and you're it. Something like that. I just want to say thank you, because I know how much work it is. I know how hard we work as leaders in kids ministry, how many hours, countless hours unpaid that we give and that you serve. And so the eternal investment that you're making is really, really, important. And we may not see it. We may not see it this side of heaven, so we don't know. But I want to thank you, because sometimes it goes as a thankless job, changing the diapers and doing all that fun stuff. So I just want to say thanks for making that investment in kids, and knowing that like they're the next generation. Like they're the ones that we're pouring into. And I think maybe Stephanie said that, like they're going to be the ones that are like looking at healing our bodies, like as a doctor, or they're going to be the ones leading churches. And so that's incredible to think that we are pouring into them, and that one day they'll be leaders. So that's pretty awesome. You are here today because you want to learn how to create an effective kids ministry team, and that's awesome. I'm really excited that you're here. I want to give you a glimpse of what my kids ministry team looks like, and tell you a little bit about what we do at Trinity. A couple years ago, we realized that we had a problem in our kids ministry and youth ministry, and there was like a gap between the kids and youth, middle school age kids, right? And there was nothing for them. They go from like children's church, where we tailored the service completely to them. They'd have like music for them and a message for them, and small groups, at their age level. And then when they turned to the 6th grade in our church, they had to go to adult service, and that was really hard for them. The transition was very difficult. And we knew that it was a problem, and we thought, what are we going to do to fix it? And so we tried a middle school ministry for a while, and it kind of fizzled out. At that time, we didn't have enough leaders to run it. We probably could do that again, but I came up with a different solution. I thought, why not get them involved in serving somewhere? Why not put them to work? And not like forcefully, but like many of them are looking for a way, a connection. They want to contribute. They want to be a part of something and give. And so I was like, you know what? We could use them in kids ministry. Why not? Like, they've been through it. They know what we do. And so I just turned around and made like this program where they can like learn how to be a leader. And we call it a junior helper program, and it kind of graduates them to service in the church. And so that's what I've done. And our kids ministry team looks like vastly different than probably yours does, because it's heavy on the student leaders. We have a lot of high school, junior high, and middle school leaders in our church. And so on a Sunday morning for us, it's 2 adults, me, kind of overseeing, and then like 4 or 5 junior leaders, like high school or younger. And that might scare you, thinking, what, having teenagers lead a service, and like, junior high students leading small group time, like, it is frightening at times because you never know what they're going to say, but these kids look up to them, and I think it's a really good investment to make, into their lives. It's not easy. It makes my life more difficult, actually, having to communicate far more frequently and far more clearly. I think it's made me a better communicator. And sometimes you're going to be disappointed with the level of leadership that they give you because they're developing, they're growing. And so that's to be expected, I think. But I feel like my job as a leader and our job is to develop leaders around us. Like, I really feel like we need to be like working ourselves out of a job. Like, I'd love to have so many leaders that I could just walk away and then like they would take care of everything. They would take care of the kids. I wouldn't have to worry about that the kids are not being given the gospel. They're not being discipled. It would take place without me. That's what we should be doing, is working ourselves out of a job. And what better environment for like these middle school students to identify their gifts, identify what they're gifted to do, and then to grow in them than the church, right? Where we can care for them and we can help them grow. And many students, like middle school age, are like, self-serving, they think about themselves a lot, and, that's understandable. But my hope is that through serving and giving of their time, that they would start to look outward, and look at other people, and even see the younger ones that are respecting them, looking up to them, that they're making a difference, to people that look up to them. And so I don't necessarily say that we have the most effective kids ministry team, but it works for us. And you guys need to find what works for you. And then decide, what does effectiveness look like? What are you hoping that your team would be? But keep in mind, there is no perfect team. There are no perfect people. And while I think you should dream about the team that you want to have, and pray and ask God to give you those leaders, I know that it may not look that way. You might inherit people. Like, people might come along with a kids ministry at some point in your ministry. People will come and you want to give them a job to do. They want to be a part of kids ministry. They say, oh, I see that you need more of this. And you're looking at them and you're like, figure out what their gifts are. I really encourage spiritual gifts analysis. There are a lot of them out there. If you've never taken one, you should know what your gifts are. You should know what God has wired you to do. And that will help you get the most joy out of serving. It can be very frustrating for leaders that don't know what their gifts are to be like forced into doing something that they're not necessarily good at. They may not be a great Bible teacher or communicator to kids, and you might see them losing their patience. Maybe it's because they're not doing what God wired them to do. And so we need to take care of our teams and make sure that we've figured out what they're good at and put them in that right place. It might be building set. It might be organizing your paperwork, your small group papers throughout the week. It might be helping you tear down and set up. They get joy in physical serving, But we won't know that unless we do a spiritual gifts. And we might put them in a position where they're like, man, I walk away feeling bummed out every week because I'm not, I feel like I'm not having an impact. Maybe it's because they're doing something they're not gifted to do. They're not serving at their greatest capacity. It's like Buddy BM says, there's room for everyone on the nice list. We want everybody to be a part of our team. And Claude was saying, not everybody should be a part of, but I'm of the mindset, I'm like, the more the merrier. I like having people serving, and there's so many working parts in kids ministry. I feel like there is a place for everybody on the kids ministry team. Once you know what their gift is, then they can do it, Not everybody's going to be super funny, not everybody's going to be super warm socially. Like, I have a little bit of a social awkwardness and a silly sense of humor that doesn't always, I'm like the last person to get a joke. If there's a joke, I'm the person that's 2 minutes later like, oh, I see what you did there. So God sees the potential in me, and we need to train our eyes to see the potential in others. And so let's talk about effectiveness. What does effectiveness mean to you? It's hard for me because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So sometimes I struggle with the mess of ministry. Just because a service was messy doesn't mean it was ineffective, right? Those are not equal to each other. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, it has to run smoothly. Everything has to go well. The person needs to be on the stage when the lights go down or whatever. And that's just not, doesn't mean it was, ineffective if it looks messy. And my job as a leader like I said, is to raise the leaders around me. So all of those junior leaders that I'm raising up, they're not like going to be able to do everything that an adult or I would do. You know, we're training them. And so I have to step back sometimes and let them struggle. You have to let them figure it out. That's how you develop people. You know, they have to have the experience. But there are 3 things that I've identified as an effective team. And this has to do with your relationship with them as you lead your team. And the first thing is that an effective team is affirmed and appreciated, okay? So these 3 things are just things that I have noticed my team needs from me to be effective. And so that's why I'm sharing. So affirmed and appreciated. Appreciate your leaders. Send them notes, encourage them, you know, to their face, but also encourage them behind their back. Brag on them to like their spouses and their kids and their parents. You know, I've got student leaders. So if I talk to a parent about how great their kid did, and then it gets back to the kid, they're like, oh man, you know, they feel so good about that. Like appreciation is contagious, I think, and you can kind of create that culture of appreciating one another. It doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to throw them a fancy banquet. You can just invite them over to your house for pizza and be like, hey, you guys worked so hard on that, whatever it is. Come over and I want to thank you guys, so let's have a pizza dinner together or something. And then affirm them in their gifts. So you have to know what they are. But I think if you pay attention to your leaders, you can find out like, what are they really good at. I have this one girl on my team, her name's Kayla, and she's a 9th grader. And she doesn't give off a lot of joy, but anybody that's around her is so, there's like a joy thing that happens. Like they love being around her, and it's such a joy-filled thing. And so I mentioned that to her. I said, you know, I noticed that when people are around you, you like make them happy. Like you are someone who spreads joy, and that means a lot to them that we would identify something like that, a gift that God has given them for being happy and spreading joy. It's simple, but it's the way that God made her. The second thing is, so an effective team is affirmed and appreciated, and then an effective team is one that's resourced. And Gabby touched on like trainings and stuff. There's a lot more to resourcing your team than just trainings, you know. They need to have what they need to get the job done. So like, if they're asking you for something and they ask you again for it, and you're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, but to them it is. And so like, we try to meet needs right away. If they're like, they need to be able to do their job as a teacher or as a leader, and so we want to like resource them in that way. Like there's one girls ministry leader that I have. She's like, you know what I really like for my class is those glue dots. You guys know what I'm talking about? Those glue dots that you can buy, and they're a little pricey. I was like, they're like $5 for a box of them, and it's like glue. Like just use the glue, just use the liquid glue, right? In my mind, but to her, she really wanted them, and I was like. So I went to Hobby Lobby, used my coupon, and got her the glue dots. I put them in her box, and I sent her a text, and she was like, yay! And she sent me all these happy emojis, and I was like, wow, this really meant a lot to her. Something simple meant a lot. And so that's resourcing them. We keep them happy and keep them growing. So that's the training opportunities, the times that they can learn from other leaders. Books are great. Books are great to learn, especially children's ministry books, if they're readers. But give them goals to work toward, and then you can evaluate them. That helps them grow. You know, let them know, hey, I'm coming to sit in your class, and so don't be worried. I'm just in there listening, and I want to we want to improve. We want to always create like that we're growing, create a culture of like growth and improvement. And so I'm going to be in your class, and then we'll have a conversation afterward. And then circle back with them and be like, hey, you know, this was awesome. You did so great. And let's work on a couple things that we can do better, you know. And be willing to do that yourself too, to be evaluated, to have somebody come observe your class, because we're all growing as leaders. And we need to be humble and accept that. We set our teams up for effectiveness, for success, with your goals that you set, your vision. You know, those are all things that they're working toward. Communication is huge. Like that is a huge resource. Just being willing and open to communication with them. Include them in conversations about the kids ministry. It shows them that you value their opinion, and that makes them feel like they're part of the team and where we're going as a ministry. And that you value their leadership. You know, they're not just people that work under you. Like you guys are a team doing this together, you know. So an effective team is affirmed, appreciated, resourced, and cared for. And this is the last point that I have. We are relational people. You know, that's how God created us. And we need to have like face-to-face time with our leaders. And that can be hard when you're busy, and as the ministries that you're in grow, it'll be harder and harder to find that time. But I mean, text is great, but face-to-face is even better. And that's hard for me sometimes because I am a little socially awkward, but having human connection with your leader, that really speaks volumes to them. You know, not just like, oh, hey, you're on to serve this week, but like meeting with them, grabbing a cup of, show them that you care, you know, have fun with them, laugh with them. It's kids ministry, have fun with them. Like, it's okay to be silly, and then steward them, like shepherd them well, and pray for them. Let them know that you're praying for them, and, you know, open up your heart to them, and, you know, then they'll open up to you. And so that's all I had. An effective team is affirmed and appreciated, resourced, and cared for. Okay? Thanks, guys.
Well done.
Let's chat. Yeah. So you guys are from the same church?
Yes.
Obviously you are. What church are you guys at?
Central.
Central AG. Where is that?
Central.
Okay. Where is it?
Where's that?
Corning
I
area.
don't, yeah, my kids went to Ithaca.
And what's your name in there?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. Hi. What church are you serving at?
Calvary's love.
Are you? Good. Awesome. Who's the children's pastor?
Taylor North and Lori Davia.
Okay. That's cool. Good. Good. Guys, do you have any questions for me about effective teams or anything else that's ministry related? And Karen and Gabby and I can kind of chat
I
about it.
actually have one for you. So our kids ministry actually looks the same as yours with all the
Good.
teens working it.
Awesome.
However, they're very frustrating because they act worse than the kids do. So I think giving them more responsibility will help with that. But how did you start? Like, what way did you start giving them that
It
responsibility?
was bumpy at first because I didn't have like a program set for them. So I don't know how you do it, but we allow them right at 6th grade to start the observation process. So we take them for the first 3 months. They're like in kids' church every Sunday. They don't sit with the kids. And I kind of had to break them up so they're not all together. Because I found that the friendships like allowed them to just be like, oh, you know, we're leaders now or something. So I had to break them up, and they observed for the first like 3 months, and then they went down from observing to like being shadowing a leader for the next couple of months, and then I put them on like a monthly rotation. So they weren't with the people that they're like being trained with, like their peers, same age. And so that kind of helped that, but the mentality of like, you have to kind of break off the mentality of like, we're here to goof around, and, you know, and I think the parents actually helped a lot with that. No phones, you know, and then like forcing them not to like sit in the back of the room, but like, these are your seats, you know, and I need you helping with this child specifically, because there's always kids that need a buddy or a friend, and so pairing them off with a kid for the duration of the class. Those are things that I did. But we did this for a couple years, and I was like, man, that's frustrating. And then I found like the process of phasing them out of kids ministry and putting like some structure around it really helped parents and kids alike, the junior helpers alike, know, okay, well, I'm working towards something. So they started to take it a little bit more seriously.
Something that I know we do at our church, whenever we have youth or middle school kids who want to help out in our ministry, we have either our children's pastor, who has been with them through the children's program, sign off on, because we do like background checks, so instead of them getting background checks since they're young, they have to be evaluated or observed by either the youth pastor or the children's ministry pastor who had them. So the youth pastor, if they do attend regularly the youth group and are involved in the youth ministry, he's the one who will kind of do their evaluation and say, okay, well, these are some strengths that I noticed about them, some things that I think they could work on. He kind of gives, not an approval, but kind of like they would be good at this type of thing. And then again, if they're not necessarily involved, or if they just left 6th grade, the children's pastor, for my side, because I'm the early childhood, he'll say, okay, I had them as this student and basically do the same thing. So that's really helpful, just having someone who can kind of vouch for them and say, well, this is what they're good at, and kind of give you a place to place them, and kind of give you almost what you were saying with the spiritual giftings of like a place of knowing what their strengths are, so that they can help you best in whatever that is. So.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe they just don't take it seriously enough, you know?
right now they're more or less crowd control and less actual leadership roles.
But they're becoming a crowd themselves.
Right.
That needs to be managed by someone, yeah.
I think the only thing too to be cautious of is that there's a high rate of, the statistics are high for abused children abusing other children. So that's the only caution area to be careful of when engaging youth. The way your church is doing it is, you've got to have that letters of recommendation, you have to have the write-up. I believe, for me, we had to do that. And I know a lot of your kids have grown up within the church, and so there's that kind of thing. But as you start to as your church starts to grow, then you're going to have more kids come in. They'll come into maybe that 6th grade, 7th grade level, and they'll be like, oh, this is what we do. Again, there's that side of caution where it still needs to be, we still got to be careful.
Yeah.
We still gotta be
And it's not for every kid.
No.
You know, every 6th grader, they don't want to do it always. So it's always an option, you know. A lot of them are just like, nope, not for me. And they'll go and they'll sit in the adult service. But we were finding that without having something in place for them, we were losing a lot of kids. They're like, I don't want to go to church, you know, that kind of thing. And staying home instead of being at church, which is what we would hope they would be. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I like for the affirm and creation aspect that you laid out. Do you have like older leaders? Like, oh, okay,
Like adults?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
like teachers.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I liked how you kind of included in relationship development, but also the inclusion of like the vision of the ministry.
Yeah.
And that's something that kind of refreshed my mind. Like I've been taking a second to like talk or sit with like any of the leaders. And this is probably just kind of me speaking out loud in the sense of like me entering, like getting more deep into children's ministry. But something that just clicked in my mind is of not overlooking that they're just coming here to teach, and that you really kind of like spark like, no, I want them to do something more beyond.
Yeah.
Because what I do, I'm the MC during like kind of main service. I do like offering, worship, and like Bible games. So it's like, and the teachers are more towards in the back. And now we're doing like kind of an altar time now. So we have more of the teachers now praying over their students, which is phenomenal. But you just really like, sparked the idea of like there should be more rather than coming to teach and like here is the lesson. And I like that. I sometimes do that, like sit down and see them teach the lesson.
Yeah.
And check on their kids and having to hear the 6th graders screaming out loud.
Yeah, when they come and they just like do their part of the service and then leave, they feel a little disconnected. So it's great that you're having them pray over the students and that you're making contact with them and sharing the vision of the church, because it really, that is their why. That is their like, this is the reason why we do what we do. So when I'm talking about effectiveness, I hope you know that like, it's not just about a well-run service, it's like, you're talking about kids' eternities, And for us, our measurement is like, is the gospel being communicated very clearly on their level? And then are we raising up the leaders, and pouring into the leaders around me? That for me, those are two things that I always consider.
I also really enjoy hearing you say, paying attention to the little stuff. I think we live in such a busy world that people aren't heard so often, and we are so used to the chatter of, whether it be social media or whatever it is. But to have you here, I really like little dots. It sounds ridiculous, but when we meet those small needs, I think our volunteers are like, you heard me and you followed through. So I think that even though you weren't talking about the appreciation, you were talking about effectiveness, equipping them, you still hit them both at the same time. You let her know that what she said was appreciated and it's making her more effective. So that was super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Another thing too is kind of, and this is what I saw the theme of trends, of identifying like the unhealthy trends and developing new trends, but not fully identifying the new healthy trends. Understand like the Spirit is dwelling in those trends.
Cool. this is good. This is good.
Actually, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Going back to student leadership,
Yeah.
what specific roles do you have the students help you with? Is it everything from sitting with kids all the way up to helping teach lessons?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So it's every
They
aspect.
don't begin, I would never put, like, when they start at 6th grade, I don't put them in as like doing anything like leadership wise. They're observing, they're training, they're learning. We have conversations about what they saw, what they heard, you know, because they're still growing. I don't know that they're ready to lead a small group, for example. I would not put them in that position until they were like high school.
Right.
Some junior high. Honestly, it depends on the kid. Because I've got some kids that like have grown up in the church, their parents are pastors, they're really strong like in their faith. And I'm like, you know what? I think they could probably handle facilitating a conversation, you know, giving them questions, I provide all of that.
Right.
They don't have to come up with any of
Right.
that on their own. Because they've witnessed it, they've been a part of it their entire childhood, and they've like observed someone, they've shadowed them, and then they're ready. Like to me, they're ready. But it all depends on the kid.
Yeah, and it goes back to like what she said of gifts and like kind of being faithful. Like for our ministry, it's more of our kid, you know, volunteers. I don't know about leaders yet.
I call them all leaders. I call them all leaders because I feel like
just knowing that
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the specific ones.
I can't call you a leader yet.
I can't call you a
Great.
leader. It's more of like the dual role, so like kind of setup and breakdown of the service, and a big aspect which draws the middle school kids a lot is tech team. Is our tech aspect, and they're just because we're now in a technological world, and they're more enthralled with technology and Fortnite. I don't know why, but it's just like they're so enthralled with it and like more interested, and like not only it's like kind of more giving them a leadership role, but you're blessing them with like kind of an opportunity in areas they want to grow in, of passions they want to pursue. Yeah, it might be children ministry, but it might be like computer science. It might be art, expression of art, or even like kind of literature, writing, or even teaching a class. So that's the fruit of them like pushing them into those roles and like kind of allowing them, but also guiding them and hovering over them in those big type of roles. Because in the end of the day, you have to be kind of what's the word? Vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable to the idea and the chance that if they fail, they fail. If they succeed, God bless. But you have to be vulnerable to that opportunity. And God has been blessing me in our ministry of, you know, for me to be vulnerable with them, to entrusting them with the tech, and it's expensive stuff.
It's hard, yeah, it's hard to step back.
But it's like, you know, kind of repetition, being consistent with them. They won't not fall in line, but they'll fall into that responsibility that you entrusted them, and they'll take up, and it's a win. It's a win of you not only being vulnerable with them, but also being vulnerable to the Spirit, for allowing Spirit to be like in control of the run through of service, the run through of what they're receiving. Because at the end of the day, that's a big thing for me. That I hope the sound didn't go well. You know, worship. None of the kids responded to the worship, but they received. They got something out of it, and like I didn't lose a kid. That's a big one. I didn't lose a kid. I did not lose a kid.
I guess that's really the heart of my question. You know, you said, you know, not every service has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And you know, for instance, you have a kid who's a great leader, and you're going to give him an opportunity. I'm going to let you teach the lesson this week, and he just completely botches it. You know, and you have that conversation. Well, it didn't really go so great, but you know, so what level do you give them to fail?
I would not, yeah, right. I would not, okay, so here's what my junior leaders do. Worship, they might lead a prayer group, like they take prayer requests and then they pray around a circle. They'll do like a small group lesson, which is like 4, 5, 6 kids. And if they're a 6th grader, I would put them with preschoolers. I would not put them with their peers. But I wouldn't, usually the Bible teaching, anything from the stage is done by an adult.
You do a great job with your, letting your kids do the skits. Those are
Skits,
beautiful.
that's something I forgot too, yeah. We do like an actor skit with a story and the whole thing. So,
All right.
those are the roles.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear.
I have a question for you guys. Do you guys have an early childhood program at all?
Yeah, we have just nursery and the preschool class.
I know that at our church we were trying to implement something where we took the younger of the like leaving the middle schoolers, so like the 6th and 7th graders, and we were kind of bringing them with the preschool area and helping assist the teachers there.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be teaching the class there, and they wouldn't ever be alone with the kids there, but they would be assisting the teachers there. So getting crayons from closets, pouring snacks for them, putting on movies, doing the tech stuff for them. So I know that's really helpful for them, because again, it's that age kind of not working with the older ones and also not having too much responsibility where they can.
And it might be good to separate them. If
Yeah.
you say there's like a band of kids that are all the same age, you know, separate them, put some with the early childhood and some with your elementary, and yeah, it might help balance it out a little bit.